Hey, how you doing, everybody? Welcome back to Big Frog's 4x4, and this is part 3 of the Chevy Cobalt rocker panel repair job. Now, for where I'm cutting for my rockers, I had my new rocker clamped into place on the pinch weld seam down here, and then traced with the Sharpie the whole edge, this upper edge of where I need to cut my current panel. So I'll cut along there, and that's where this will be butted against there and welded into place. Alright, what I've decided to do is take a piece of 2-inch square tubing scrap that I had, and I'm going to weld that to this top piece up here, weld it down around, and I will also weld it down inside here to the rear wheel well sheet metal. And then I took a top piece that was originally welded to the rocker panel that I'm not using. I flipped it around and then bent an edge here so it would roll up around and match the curve that's over here. This was a gap that was already here from the factory. This was all a square opening. So it'll be welded all the way up here. This will be welded. This will be welded down here. This will get welded to this pipe. This will all be welded down around, spot welded across the bottom, and this will all be welded up. So I'm pretty sure and I'm pretty confident that this is going to be a lot stronger than even the factory was, because this is all box tubing and not that sheet metal that was had that weird round shape to it and it tied in behind there. This will be all filled in, and then my rocker panel will come down around down here and then fold underneath and then spot weld into this as well. All right, I'm going to show you the progress, what we have so far. I have my square 2-inch tubing welded in, and then I have my piece of sheet metal formed and welded in back here and to the 2-inch tubing and down here to where the original spot was. Now the next thing I have to do is weld this section in, and then I need to get my rocker fabricated. So I'm going to work on getting this section fabricated in. I don't have a metal brake, so what I found works for me is a vise, 2 blocks of wood. I set my back piece of wood to the height that I want, wherever I want my bend. I usually take large clamps then and clamp this tight, clamp this back. Then I take a hammer and I'll just gently tap it all along here until this is folded at the angle that I wanted. So I cut these panels off of the rocker because obviously it's not going to fit up tight where I needed it. I don't know if that's someone in the manufacturing, or I definitely need to trim more off of this lip. So we'll see where that goes. But I need to make that my piece to go in here to fill in this. So I trimmed my corner back right where this slopes down. I trimmed that so I can weld along there. And I came down here and I marked where my rust stopped. And I will cut then this piece all the way back and then mark this panel exactly where that is so I can cut that down so we can have that small gap. When you spot weld, you just want that small gap for the weld to fall down in so that the weld is not on top. Alright, I'm going to use this magnetic pickup tool to try to hold on to this so I can mark this in. Basically, I'm going to set my panel there in place. Remember, I want to have a little bit of a gap all the way around. I'm going to mark where I'm going to cut this, and that way I can have that perfect line all the way around. Alright, we have that all trimmed down. Now if it doesn't fit, remember always cut a little small first, and then come in and file or sand down. But we have a pretty good fit right there. Said you want a little bit of a gap so that your weld can go down between the panels and not sit on top of the panels. So I got a little bit of cleaning up to do, some edges, but looks like that panel is going to fit good. Well, now we're at the rocker panel stage. This is the part where I had to grind down this very corner because this was a sharp point, because this is rounded here. So I had to round this off. And I want to line up this edge where it needs to be welded perfectly so I can go to the other end and trim where I need to on the factory rocker panel. This has to be exactly where you need it and then clamped into place. So now I have to trim this end off to where the factory location is. So I looked down between the pinch weld down here, and I looked up here, and I put a black mark where it is, with this being just ever so slightly longer. So if you cut it, you can always trim it to fit. You don't want to make it too short. So I just marked this a little bit longer than the factory rocker panel, so that then I can line this up, lay this over top the factory rocker panel, and mark it, and I'll show you that here in a minute. First, we're going to cut this to length. So as you can see, I laid the new rocker, lined it up on the other end, clamped it in place, and then laid it over top of the rocker that's here, the original rocker, marked it off at the end, so I know exactly where to cut. And that way, when I lay my new rocker in place, it'll butt up right up against that line. So I just need to take the body saw now and cut that excess off. So part of the problem I'm having now is the curvature of the new rocker panel does not match the curvature of the original factory rocker panel. So I'm going to have to spot weld all the way up, gently massaging the metal, all the way up to probably about what it looks like about here, where it starts to bend back out. And then I'm going to have to bend it in, spot weld, bend it in, spot weld, all the way up to around to the top.